Hello and welcome to the Graham Sibbald Podcast, the home of all your property news. I'm Jorja McAndrew, and today on the podcast we're going to be talking all things thermography, and we'll be joined by another member of the Graham Sibbald team to talk about the latest thermography technology and all the benefits that come with it. So with no further ado, on with the show. Welcome to our latest Graham Sibbald Podcast episode. Today we are joined by Dan Tucker, who is a director within the Building Surveyance Department at Graham Sibbald, based within the firm's Manchester office. Hi Dan, how are you?
Good afternoon, Georgia. I'm well, thanks. And you?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Can't complain. So, as always, we kind of like to ask people about their role within Graham Sibbald. So, please tell me about your role.
Well, I started with the business in 2021, and as you say, I'm a director within the Building Surveying Department based out of the Manchester office. Within the office, we offer the full breadth of building surveying and architectural services. I'm a chartered surveyor and thermographer, and of late, I've been utilising thermal imaging heavily within the defect investigations and contract admin services that we deliver.
Amazing. I can't wait to find out a little bit more about that. So what exactly is thermography and how is it carried out?
Well, we carry it out in two stages, really. Infrared thermography, or IRT, as it's sometimes known, is a way of interpreting infrared radiation that leaves an object. It just allows us to review materials and properties that are not visible to the human eye, such as thermal mass, heat loss, and which can assist with the accurate targeted identification of defects. Thermography, in its first phase, is to use our thermal imaging equipment, and we record the environmental conditions when we're looking at that may affect the thermal image. Things such as reflected temperature or emissivity, which is the ability of a material to reflect infrared radiation, is important to record. Because these factors will affect that image as we go on to look at it later on. That then takes us to the second phase of thermal imaging, which is the tuning and the report itself. In this phase, we analyse the data from the thermal photographs and tune them to focus on the subject material only, which allows us to create a sharp image showing the defect to record in our reports alongside traditional surveying techniques. This assists in quantifying the extent of the recorded issue. And then following completion of the survey, we're often appointed to complete a scope of works, which will rectify the highlighted defects and oversee the project as a contract administrator. Once completing the project, we're then able to demonstrate the improvement in the building to the stakeholders by using before and after thermal imaging.
It sounds very cool, all this stuff that's not can't see with the human eye. Sounds very fancy. So last year you published an article around embracing the opportunities of thermal imagery. How exactly has this technology benefited your clients?
Yeah, well, we cater for a range of different clients with the thermography side, more so than perhaps on the traditional surveying routes, due to the breadth at which it's used across. So the use of thermal imaging as part of our surveying service has enabled our surveyors to reduce the level of invasive testing and allowed it to become more targeted where required. Working in this manner helps us to reduce the cost to the client and minimises the disruption, while at the same time we speed up the process of the defect investigation. So instead of cutting holes in walls to try and see things where we need to, we can start to see through those walls by using that infrared monitoring. It's also particularly beneficial when we're identifying water ingress. We've used the technology a number of times recently to identify deficiencies in laps within flat roof coverings, but also to track moisture migration through the walls of a building or blockages in waste pipes. And then perhaps more of the specialized side of it, we've used thermography to ISO 18436, which has assisted our teams with clients with critical M&E infrastructure. And by using that technology and recording it in that way, it's enabled us to read thermal signatures coming from plant and machinery to allow for condition monitoring, which has informed targeted planned preventative maintenance surveys, which has reduced the frequency of unscheduled downtime. So when this is applied to, for instance, some of our clients that provide hospital care, we've been able to reduce the amount of times that a theatre has perhaps come offline and reduce then operations being postponed.
Very interesting. It sounds like there's lots of useful aspects to the technology then. What are the benefits from an environmental perspective?
Well, environmental is a huge thing for GNS at the minute with our net zero teams. So there are multifaceted benefits from this perspective. The ability to identify thermal mass or air leakage and thermal transmission all assist when we're assessing a building for retrofit or simply to allow for isolated targeted upgrades as we continue within all of our journeys towards net zero. Thermal imaging has been used to complement the wider net zero services teams, including carbon and sustainability, architecture and planning, in order to demonstrate heat loss through defective windows to support funding applications. We've managed to secure thousands, tens of thousands for our clients by being able to demonstrate that to the stakeholders. We've identified poor performing insulation that's become saturated through water ingress and therefore is not doing the job that perhaps the building owners or operators think it once was. We've identified thermal bridging in structures and fixings. So again, things that may have been overlooked in the initial design or things that perhaps aren't known to the building user. And we've used it to validate works following construction to demonstrate the thermal performance of a building, just to ensure that it does perform as it was designed and intended to, and really check whether we've got any construction defects there that would otherwise be hidden.
Yeah, great to hear how thermography is helping GNS work towards net zero. One question I had for you is, how exactly do you become a thermographer?
Well, there are a number of accredited courses that you can take through different providers such as IRED or Infrared Training Centre. And there are different levels that are available according to the types of thermal imaging that the candidate is intending to undertake. It's important for our side within the built environment that anyone doing thermal imaging, the operator has a good understanding of building fabric in order to get the most out of the technology. It really serves to us to enable us to target our traditional methods of building surveying and just complements that service offer rather than a straight replacement. But it is really useful for that operator of the camera to have that in-depth knowledge. So within the training courses, you start from an entry level where you'll be learning about the very basics of thermal imaging, and you go right the way around to tutor level within that course.
Great, thank you, Dan. It's super interesting to kind of find out how you become a thermographer there. I think that's all we have time for today on the Graham Sibbald Podcast. So all I have to say is thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Jorja.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks again to Dan for his time today. For more information and to view the full range of services offered by the Graham Sibbald Building Surveying team, please visit our website at www.g-s.co.uk. Thank you for listening, and until next time, you can catch up on all our latest podcast episodes via the playlist on our YouTube channel. Bye!